How good really is Tom Aspinall? Now, Tom Aspinall is a UK heavyweight and he's been getting a lot of attention recently because of his fight with Marcin Tybura, and people are calling him overrated, people are calling him underrated, people are saying a lot about Tom Aspinall. And today we're going to be covering how good is Tom Aspinall, what achievements will he do, what problems are in his game, and how good just genuinely is Tom Aspinall. I'm Hopper MMA. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. We do videos like this a lot, but I'm just going to get into it. First of all, let's talk about his statistics. Now, Tom Aspinall has a record of 12 wins and 3 losses. One of those losses was a disqualification, quite similar to the John Jones loss, and he probably shouldn't have lost that fight. And the other one was an injury to Curtis Blade, so he's only really got one legitimate loss, and that wasn't even in the UFC. He's 30 years old, which is fairly young for MMA, especially the fact that he's in the heavyweight division, where a lot of these guys are like 35 to 40 years old, so he's got a lot of time left. His last 3 fights, he managed to... he unfortunately lost to Curtis Blades due to an injury. If you saw that fight, he kicked him in like the first 15 seconds and his knee just shattered. He beat Alexander Volkov and Spivak in 1 round as well, and look where those two are at right now. Spivak's, I believe he's going to be fighting Cyril Gane next. Alexander Volkov, I think he's got a fight booked with Tuivasa, but they're both top heavyweights ever since beating Aspinall, ever since losing to Aspinall, sorry. And those two are just sat there on Aspinall's resume. It would have been good if we saw the Curtis Blades fight, as it would have been the toughest test of his career, but unfortunately he did get injured in that fight. But the statistics are looking bright for him. Not too old, records are not too bad. Quite a low record though, only 15 fights, but he's already made it to the top level. Yeah, these are his last 3 fights. He's got an upcoming fight against Marcin Tybura at UFC London, who I've already made a prediction on that card if you want to check it out, and I think Aspinall wins in 1 round, but he's got a current fight against Marcin Tybura, who's a UFC veteran. He's beaten people like Alexander Romanov. He's also beaten Sergey Spivak a couple of years ago, and I believe he did lose to Alexander Volkov though. So they have some common opponents. Then let's move on to why is there so much hype around Tom Aspinall's name. Well, first of all, he's a very solid grappler. You know what they say about British people? They say British people can't grapple. Well, Tom Aspinall is the one person who kind of defies that. He is a very solid grappler. He took down Alexander Volkov like it was nothing. He did better than Curtis Blades to Volkov. He managed to avoid Sergey Spivak's grappling. He submitted Andrei Arlovsky, submitted Alexander Volkov. He's a very, very solid grappler, especially for a British guy. Yeah, he's just a really good grappler. He hasn't legitimately lost in the UFC yet. He's won every fight by finish, besides the Curtis Blades fight where he got injured, and that wasn't a legitimate loss, so he's yet to lose in the UFC legitimately. He's not undefeated in his record. He has lost before, but he's yet to lose in the UFC, so it's not like we've seen anyone else in the company beat him before. In my opinion, everyone in the heavyweight division, he's got the fastest hands. He's so quick. If you watch his fights, you'll see how quick he is. That elbow he landed on Spivak, the reflexes against Volkov, the knockout of Jake Collier, the Andrei Arlovsky. He's got really, really quick hands as Aspinall. He's got really, really fast hands for a heavyweight, and I believe they're only going to get faster as time goes on. If you look at his old fights, again, you'll see how quick he is. He finishes most of his opponents. I believe he's got a really short fight time. He finishes most of his opponents. I think he's only got like two decision wins in his entire career. He's either submitting people or TKOing them pretty fast, so he's a pretty quick finisher. He doesn't go for the finish. He doesn't rush in there like people like Pavlovich. He takes his time, but because of how good he is, he just manages to get him out there quickly. He's got knockout power and he's got submission ability. I mean, he knocked out Spivak. He knocked out all of his other opponents, Jake Collier. He submitted Arnold. I keep calling him Arnold. Submitted Andrei Arlovsky. Submitted Alexander Volkov. So he's got knockout power and submission ability. He's not just a one-trick pony. He's not just a one-dimensional fighter. He can knock you out and submit you. And he's very strong. If you look at his training recently, ever since his year off, he's in way better shape. He's a really strong heavyweight. He's never really been out-strengthened in his career so far. And he's also beaten people, like I said, Arlovsky, Spivak and Volkov, 2 of which are now top contenders. That just shows how good Tom Aspinall is. Ever since the fight with Alexander Volkov and Sergey Spivak, those 2 guys are now top contenders. Like I said, Spivak's fighting Gane, and I think Volkov's going to be fighting Tuivasa, so 2 of the people that he's recently beaten are top contenders. And Arlovsky, I mean, he's really old, but he's got the experience. What are the issues with Tom Aspinall's career so far? So things that aren't looking too bright about him, or questions that need answering. First of all, I've noticed that he's got very suspicious striking defense. He leaves his chin up a lot. Whenever there's like a fighter rushing towards him, he tends to leave his chin up. And if somebody like Pavlovich does that to him, who's really accurate and really powerful, I'm scared that he's going to knock Aspinall out. I'm not saying Aspinall's chinny. I'm not saying he has a bad chin. I'm just saying his striking defense. I mean, you saw even for the 15 seconds against Curtis Blades, his chin was getting caught a lot. He has really suspicious striking defense. So hopefully, after this Tybura fight, it's a lot better. There's a lot of questions about his knee. Obviously, last time we saw him, his knee got shattered. So there's a lot of questions. Will his knee be the same? Will he be able to move the same? Will it handicap him? I've been watching his interviews, and he's been saying that before the knee, he always had problems with it, and he just couldn't afford it. And now that it's shattered, he's managed to use surgery for it, and now his knee's a lot better than before. Hopefully that's the case. He has been out for a year. He's been out since pretty much exactly a year. I think it's 364 days, the difference between his last two fights, so pretty much exactly a year. I don't think that's going to affect him too much, but I think this is the longest layoff he's ever had in his career, so you don't know how much rust there's going to be. And in my opinion, he needs to beat another higher end opponent. He needs to beat somebody like Pavlovich or Cyril Gane or Curtis Blades to prove his worth. Beating Tybura is good, but Tybura isn't a high level opponent. I know he's beaten Spivak before and Volkov, but we need to see him beat someone like Pavlovich or Cyril Gane or Curtis Blades just to measure how good he actually is amongst these top heavyweights. And his cardio hasn't been tested yet. I know that's a good and a bad thing because he's able to finish all these guys so quickly, but his cardio hasn't been tested. We don't know if he can go 3 rounds. We don't know if he can go 5 rounds. And we never know. After round 3, for all we know, Aspinall could be gassing out because his cardio just hasn't been tested. He's never been to a 5-round fight in the UFC because he's just finishing everyone so quickly. So hopefully his cardio isn't that bad. And let's just talk about my overall opinions on Tom Aspinall. I think he will touch gold at some point in his career. He's only 30 years old, so he's got a longer time left, and he's already very talented. So I feel with a little bit more fights under his resume and a bit more experience, I really do think he'll be the champion someday. And I think he will touch gold at some point in his career. If he doesn't, that's going to be extremely disappointing. But I'm almost certain that Tom Aspinall will be the champion one day. I can see him getting knocked out. Like I said, his chin being high up and the fact that he's in heavyweight, which is a very competitive division with some very hard hitters, I can see him getting knocked out, unfortunately. I don't want it to happen. He's my favourite fighter. I can just see it happening. I think he smokes Tybura easily. I can't see any way that Tybura is better than him, not on the feet, not in the grappling exchanges. I just think Tom Aspinall beats Tybura fairly easily in all the grappling exchanges. So I'm going to go with Aspinall for smoking Tybura. I think he'll fight for the belt in 2024. I really do. I think he'll beat Tybura, and then he's going to fight somebody like Cyril Gane or Curtis Blades again. Maybe Taito Ivaza if he beats Volkov. Maybe he'll fight Sergey Spivak again. But I think he'll fight for the belt in 2024. I think next year he'll have a title shot. He's got at least 6 to 8 years left in the sport. A lot of these heavyweights are probably going to retire in the next 3-4 years. I think Aspinall's probably going to be the one that lasts the longest. He's got 6 to 8 years left in this sport. Obviously, he's got some other prospects like Jelton Almeida, who's up and coming, but he's got 6 to 8 years left in the sport. So, he's got a long time left. I just think we need to see a little bit more from him yet. We've only seen him face Volkov and Spivak, which are his real tough tests. Beating Tybura is good. It'll show how good Aspinall is, but I think we need a higher level caliber opponent. So, yeah, that is what I think of Tom Aspinall. How good really is Tom Aspinall? He's good, and I think he will be champion one day. There are a few nuts and bolts, but yeah, I think he'll be champion one day. He's very, very good for a heavyweight, and yeah, that's my opinion on Tom Aspinall.